Hey, folks! It's Lunch with Mel coming back after the summer lull, slump, vacation, whatever it might be. Um, I'm guessing I'm probably not gonna have a lot of people attending today, but I know you guys will watch the replay. So hello, all the replay watchers, and hi, Jill. Jill's here. So I've got a rant today. Um, I'm pretty cheesed at this online book marketing company, and I'm going to be talking about that. But I did want to, before I talk about that, I did want to just kind of show the book mock-up site that I made that people can use if they so wish. Um, and I forgot to set it up to share the screen, so let me do that. Okay, pardon me. So this is bookmockups.authortools.net, and it's a cool site where you can go and get some nice 3D mockups. The really big thing about this is that this uses the old cover vault designs that used to require you use Photoshop for, and I took them and I ran them through what's called like a baking process to make it so you can still get all the cool 3D effects and the sheen that you can't get from like a lot of stuff. Like if you look at like this particular book here, you see that sheen on it, the nice 3D effect that you get from the mock-up, and that's something you can't normally get. Hello, honey. The other thing I have that this does too is your covers never leave your computer. So this doesn't go up to some other AI or some other system where they train on your data or anything like that. This stuff actually all happens in your browser. The covers you use for this never leave your computer. Hey, Amy. So the neat thing too is like you can add images, and this is all like I said stored in your browser. So add whatever images you want, and then once you have, if it's the text, it's a front cover, it can tell by the size of it, and if you upload a wrap, it knows it's a wrap, and then of course you can adjust actually where your spine is on your wrap, and that's super handy because now if I take this particular book here and drop it in the spine spot, it just knows to use the spine of the book, and then I can then put like the cover for book one on there, and I keep the sheen, I keep the cool 3D effect, and then I can download it. On the first download you do, it asks for your email address, and then after that, it does not ask for your email address anymore. So I wanted to mention that. Built that a while ago, and then just took a bit to get the email sign up stuff and do some fine tuning. There were a couple of templates that just using the browser isn't quite as good as Photoshop, so it takes a lot of work to make sure that it smoothly stretches everything. And there were a couple of instances where it didn't, so we had to square that away. But I'm actually pretty happy with it. It's got some box sets all the way up to a 6-book box set, ones with the e-readers, some other cool ones, different mixes and matches. So you can do things like here's your spine and your cover on that one, and then you could have something else on the phone screen. So you could even do like your special print edition covers and all of that in these really easy to make graphics that are super fast to put together. So bookmockups.authortools.net, like Jill put in, completely free to use, just takes your email address when you go to do your first download, and you guys can have at it. Just a nice little free thing that we want to just offer to everybody to have it. Like I said, the cool thing about this too, the books don't leave your computer. Everything you do here all stays on your computer. That's right. Yeah, Jill and I talked about how we're going to make so you can add in, um, sprayed edges, interior shots, all sorts of stuff like that. So we'll be doing some cool stuff going forward too. So have at it. And if there's any sort of designs or mock-ups you want, I could definitely look into making some new ones. Like I said, most of these are based off the old cover vault stuff, but that doesn't mean that we can't add additional mock-ups or designs to it. It's once the system's built, it's pretty straightforward. But that's not what you're here for. You guys are here for the rant. You're here for me being like super cheesed, and it's about a marketer who. I suppose I should probably enlarge this a bit so the screen's bigger. There we go. It's about a marketer who I think was a little bit disingenuous in how they're talking about things. And it comes from this site, Nova Media Marketing. It's kind of funny. Like they don't have a favicon. They don't even have a title for this page. The page is untitled. They say things like how one women's one women's fiction. That's the genre, women's fiction author turned a stalled backlist into $41,000 a month in royalties without touching her ads. And then they talk about for pages and pages how they took over the ads. So it's like, is there an audiobook mock-up with earbuds? There's not, but perhaps there could be. Um, but yeah, so this really kind of cheesed me because like just like the first thing was like, wait, like you made you took over all of our ads, and then you added lock screen ads, and then for some reason step two took one, two, three steps. There's three step twos in here. So apparently step two was a pretty long step two. And this is the exact same step two. So clearly a lot of work was involved in step two when it came to making this particular thing that they put together. But the thing that like kind of first brought to my attention is they talk about how and actually I'm pretty sure I know who this author is. But they talk about this author like learned from respected names like Mark Dawson, someone named Mallory Cooper, like this. I don't know who this person is. Last I checked, my name is spelled differently than that. Melissa Storm, David Gumber, and Nicholas Eric. She applied their advice and it worked well for a while. This particular author, I worked with her in 2022 or 2023, maybe 2023. And I saved her from a $10,000 a month spend that was not earning anything. And we actually made it so that she could run profitable ads on $3,000 a month. And then she went off to do that for quite a while. And the thing that kind of like, so that's what I went just to point and laugh and be like, haha, you spelled my name wrong. Like, how am I going to get the backlink cred if you're not like spelling my name correctly? Clearly, I need to be compensated in some fashion for that. I need a little bit of backlink cred here, people. But then I looked down and I saw this graph, and this graph is the epitome of deceptive advertising, and it made me upset. The first thing that makes me upset about this is how they describe the decline. So if we look at this graph from say January 2025 through to August 2025, where the author, like this one is 25K, this one's a little bit above 25K. This would actually, if you were actually to like graph that out and like give me a trend line, it would be flat. And if it wasn't flat, it might even be up a bit because the overall trend, the ending of the graph is still higher. I'd actually have to math it out, but it's like it's probably flat or flat adjacent. And then September, October, November, and December of 2025, there was a decrease. So if you're going to map a decline, your arrow just needs to be over these 4 to 5 months is where your decline lives. Before that, it's effectively flat, which really kind of annoyed me just to see that particular graph. Thank you, Manette. Oh, it's awesome that you brought lunch for this one. That's really good. So that annoyed me at first, and then I saw this part that says we took over her ads, and then line go up. Everything's amazing. This looks great. But this graph is highly deceptive because they're counting gross royalties. And I did the numbers. It's not a stacked graph. My first fear was a stacked graph, and they're actually stacking royalties on top of spend. It's not. If you add up all of the totals through all of these months, you end up with about $488,000. So they didn't do a stacked graph. They actually did like a semi-proper graph, but they're showing gross royalties, right? So this graph, this climb is on top of a $3,000 a month ad spend to a $15,000 a month ad spend. That's like a 5x increase in ad spend for what, on the average that this author was able to achieve on their own. Let's be generous and toward this company making this graph. And let's say this author made 20 grand a month. They doubled the top line with a 5x increase in ad spend. What that means is a massive increase in risk for not a big increase in results. And here's where it gets really interesting. If you take this particular graph and you redo this graph as not gross, but as net, what you find is this. What you get out of this is, so the blue line is their ad spend. I just took that off and put it on its own separate bar, and instead we mapped net. What we find here is that the author is making a little bit over $25,000 a month net, which is about what they could make on their own the prior year, and they've increased their spend by 5x. and you've got an agency fee inside of that as well. Agency fee for this sort of thing is between $2,000 and $5,000 a month. This particular company is probably a little bit more on the more expensive side because they're doing Amazon lock screen ads, which you have a bunch of, it's a bunch more work to do those. You have to be an approved vendor, AMS red approved, yada, yada, yada thing going on. So this particular company is out there saying that they're doing amazing things for authors. And all they did was actually make it so they pulled this author out of a seasonal dip for 5x the cost and then put an agency fee on top of it. So I would guess that this author is actually making is taking home, putting food on the table with less money. I mean, $20,000 a month is enough to put food on a table pretty easily, but it's less money than they were making before on their own. And this particular untitled page here is treating this like some sort of great victory that they had, and it's not. It's not. And I'm not saying that I'm better than this, right? But I'm not making case studies that are obfuscating the truth and lying about things. I think that probably generally I am better than this. My goal is usually to make more money for people, or at the very least take over all of the time that they would have done to spend doing that. Like at the very least, I'm like, hey, you're gonna make as much money at the end of the day, and you just don't have to worry about it. And that's its own separate pitch, right? If you pitch on that, pitch on that. But if you're pitching on, we took over her ads and look that she's now having $41,000 a month months, and then comparing that against a seasonal low around $15,000 a month, that is just straight up disingenuous and dishonest. And they didn't even spell my name right. I am cheesed about that. Yeah, it bothers me greatly. I want to dovetail that with something else. So a lot of stuff changed at the end of last year, and they're out there saying like, hey, all of these different respected names, at least they said that, right? Gave advice that didn't work, and this author didn't know how to do things, and they didn't know how to pick things up, which is true. Things change. You need to re-up your training, or just be paying attention to what's going on. You don't have to like pay anybody for it. You could just go out there and soak up a lot of information, do a bunch of testing, and figure it out. I mean, I guess in that case you're paying Facebook for the testing, but you can solve this stuff on your own. But it is changing, and there were massive changes last year. Most people saw their ads decline a lot sooner than this, but here's the big kicker. Last year, CPCs went up in cost by 25% in November from August. So August to November, 25% increase in cost per click means, based on the way percentages work, you're going to get about 20% fewer clicks. So the ad spend here stayed the same. You can see that. And then they got scared because after the bad December, this author drew down their ads. They had a little bit of a panic attack. I'm spending the same amount of money. I made barely any money in December. So you can see that they probably drew down their spend from 3K ish. They might have bumped it up a bit. Their ad spend might have gone up a bit in November and December. It's a little bit hard to tell. And then they drew it down to what looks like 2, maybe, and then maybe even 1.5, 1.75K. If they had kept their ad spend at the December level, they would have rebounded in January just as high as they were the prior year, right? Their January rebound, like look at this, the January rebound was actually almost where they were a year before, on more ad spend. Like they were only $2,000 off on probably $1,500 less ad spend. So their net this January, where they suddenly freaked out and then drew down their ad spend even further in February, was probably only $500 off their net the prior year. This is where it's easy to get kind of panicked sometimes. If we have short-term thinking, we're not looking at the history, we're not looking at our net over certain amounts of time. I suspect this author kept their ad spend up, refreshed their ads in January. Also, probably what happened to this author, January is where a bunch of the old school targeting ads got turned off. Like if you were still running them, Facebook just shut them off. So that probably hit them too. They were still running old ads that were declining in effectiveness because we were all kind of supposed to stop running them back in June. Facebook just gave us a grace period. And then those ads also got shut off. If both of those things hadn't happened, that dip would never have occurred. This author would have been cruising along at this 25K on a 5K spend, 5x ROI, right? Like that's amazing. Or at least, I mean, it's not, we don't know that this is return on overall author investment. This is not ROAS because we don't know what return actually came from the ads themselves. But this is really disingenuous and pretty bogus. And then also the other thing I forgot to mention or forgot to finish was that when ad costs went up by 25%, that means your volume of clicks go down by a little bit over 20% because of how percentages work. Um, and that actually accounts for the majority of the dip in these 2 months was the fact that ad costs went up. So ad costs come down and now you get more bang for your buck, except they increased the buck by 5x. And that's the thing that really just ticked me off about this was like this is a disingenuous chart. This chart is a lie. It's trying to show three different things on top of one chart, and to do so, it is just basically being dishonest with all of them. This is the honest chart right here. We brought your ad spend back up, or your brought your net royalties back up to where they were at 1/5 the efficiency of what you did on your own dear author, right? We decreased your efficiency by 80% to put you back where you were. And the thing that's really worth remembering about this is the amount of risk that is now inherent in this, because it doesn't take long for an ad to stop, when a couple of these ads to stop working very well, where suddenly you see that decrease in net royalties. And don't you, even if the blue line was just as high as the red line, it's the orange line. The orange line is net. So even if the blue line was up at 25k, that's still 25k net. So it's not like that line grow. It would have to grow a lot to become unprofitable, but the risk does definitely go up. And yeah, you can't float the spend. And of course, remember, you pay ad spend in advance, right? This is the big thing that this particular company is talking about doing, how they're going to make everything so wonderful, everybody, is by using lock screen ads. And lock screen ads generally, if you want to go direct in with Amazon, you gotta commit to $50,000 and spend a month. The people that kind of do this on behalf can then sort of like, they can take multiple clients and they usually run them at like $10,000 a month ad spend or something like that, which looks like about what this author's paying. But yeah, it doesn't take too many months, when your profit is only around 25k. It doesn't take too many months where 10,000 if a $10,000 ad spend doesn't work for you to start losing money. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think like this is one of those things where like, when you think about risk, you have to think like, wow, like this looked amazing, right? Spend, return, 5x. Actually, this particular scenario it was actually closer to 10x. The 10x gross, maybe like 8.5 times return. That's amazing. The author did it on their own, and this company got them back there by not doing it well. And they position it where the author's confused. They're not sure what to do. She refreshed creatives more often than ever before. The results did not come back. The problem was refreshing creatives wasn't going to work because it was the targeting that changed. So and I don't like that. I don't like the fact that they position this author as not knowing what they're doing, and then they came in and white knighted and saved this person. They basically increased this author's bottom line, a decent amount. This author was only like netting 15, not 15, like 13, $12,000 some of these months, only netting 13, $12,000 a month, and they got them back up to netting $25,000 a month. So they did double their net. But like I said, they didn't save this author entirely. There were a couple of factors involved in here that some of them would have self-healed on their own. And yeah, this is something that I'm kind of not super keen on. And I don't think even in the days of yore, I exhibit this behavior of like a tech bro. I've got the answers. You don't know what you're doing, and if you just listen to me, we'll fix the problem. There's always risk. There's always the possibility of things not working right. And I try to be honest about that sort of thing. This really rubbed me the wrong way. It's dishonest and it's sloppy too. This is, not well written. It's got like, like I said, it's got like this mishmash of all these different steps. There are actually a couple of good things in here that they talk about that they're doing, but there's like some other graphs here too. Um, uh, yeah. So here we are right here. Look at the July numbers are they in the other graph? Oh, yeah, July is in there. But some of these things like aren't always going up, right? So if you kind of look at some of these things, you're like, man, like, this it's obviously doesn't always not everything always works perfectly. Things go up and down. So It's a bit of risk. Yeah, lock screen ads. You're not familiar with what lock screen ads are. You, as like a regular AMS person user, can actually choose to have your ads appear on lock screen, but they rarely will because Amazon prioritizes this other program where they charge beaucoup dollars to get your ads on the lock screen. And I know a lot of authors. I know more authors who've had lock screen ads fail than have had lock screen ads succeed. Um, like an order of magnitude more authors who've had lock screen ads fail than succeed. And they're usually a short term thing. Most people who run lock screen ads find that they die out in effectiveness pretty strongly after about 8 months. So, this particular author, because rather than going back and learning why did my ads dip in these months, what changed seasonally, and what changed in the platform, instead outsourced to a short-term boost system that will stop working, that this coming Christmas, there's a strong chance they're going to be back in this situation again with the exact same problem. And the interim, these interim months here throughout summer will net them no more profit than they did on their own. So the real answer is learning why this happened and fix it on Facebook, right? You could do the lock screen ads in addition, but this author could have these numbers, this like 7 to 8x ROI on their own without paying anybody else, with like just some small changes to what they were doing to adapt to what Facebook did at that particular time. Which is why, like, if you're going to run ads, it's continuing education, or this company gets pretty wealthy, and spends your money rather indiscriminately in my thoughts, for you to have the exact same return you'd have on your own. So that's just kind of my thing. Yeah, Jenna um, says the patterns have solutions. Absolutely. Um, Thank you, Amy, for almost a decade. Wow, that means you've been following me pretty much ever since I started talking about ads and helping people with ads. That's been a stretch. Um, and I have periods where I'm like, okay, things aren't working. I don't know why yet, and it takes a while to figure it out. But I do my best to share it. And this, so here's the other part of why I want to share this with you. This is going to happen again this year to all of us. Ad costs are predicted to go up 20 to 25% again this year, in November. So right now, um, your ads are going to cost you less to run. Now, here's the other thing that's really important. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop sharing this because it makes me angry. Um, so here's the other thing that's important, though. Um, Ads convert better around Christmas because people are in a buying mood. They like to buy things for themselves, and print starts doing really well around Christmas. In certain genres, like especially children and teen, you can like to make the majority of your year's money selling print books around Christmas time. So you, depending what you're selling and how you market, and how you position it, um, those months right there where you see this KU decline, because this author is a KU author, they make their money through KU. If this author were pushing special editions, sprayed edges, talking about like the emotional beauty, the emotional sort of feel you get from the beauty of the book, and having the beautiful thing on your shelf, they would probably also have not seen this particular thing. There's a seasonality to people's buying behaviors and what they want to buy at certain times. A big part of what happens at Christmas too is you're buying all the stuff for other people and you're like, I want things too, right? And so you buy yourself some stuff because you can't wait until the 25th when you get the stuff from the other people. You also probably don't trust the other people to buy you the things you want. So you buy yourself some things till you're out shopping and all those Christmas sales are going on. So by thinking about the buyer behavior around the holidays, what people want, and then selling them the right thing, you can offset that increase in ad cost by saying, hey, you're busy. You're doing the shopping. If you're in the States, American Thanksgiving's right up against Christmas. Got a lot going on, got a lot of family, got a lot of events you're doing, school plays, who knows what's going on, traveling to visit people. You're reading less. Your readers are reading less. However, they're eager to buy pretty things in that particular time frame. So if you pivot your pitch from read book when you have time to yourself, and instead say, here's a pretty thing that will give you a dopamine hit right now, and you can read it later, in January or February, you're going to feel great. And that's actually, I think, one of the reasons I figure out why February's kind of suck. I think that's when people actually get around to reading all the books they bought on the holidays. I think that's why we see KU and sales numbers go down in February. Um, And so that's just a guess because I've never been able to find like a solid reason for why it happens. People should have more time to read. They're indoors. Why do sales and everything go down? I suspect it's because we dump so many cheap books on them over Christmas. They can just read books, like crazy in February. Um, should authors sell socks instead at Christmas instead of books? I mean, you could. It's not a bad idea. I mean, and to be honest, the smart authors are doing that. Maybe not necessarily socks, but they're selling other things. They're putting together book boxes, they're putting together packages, they're putting together physical feel-good things, and those authors make bank over Christmas. Trust me, I work with some of them. They sell a lot of that stuff. I know authors who cold sell $100 hardcovers over Christmas because they look pretty, and that's all it takes to do it. So you can definitely go. It does depend on the margin. You're absolutely right, but usually you can get pretty good margin if you've. I think the thing to keep in mind is if you've run some Kickstarters, you've probably that allows you to build up the systems to know where to get the things to have the good margins, and then when Christmas hits, boom, you get to sell stuff and make it go. And yeah, Jill Jill is making ugly Christmas socks apparently. So yes, apparently selling socks for Christmas is the thing that authors are doing. That author, at least one of them, my wife, is doing that. Um, but that's how you deal with that particular decline. That's the real solution. Understand what changed in the platform. Go out and listen to what people are saying about what's new, what's different, what's changed. Apply that. Always be testing new things. And then when things start to go sideways, don't panic and decrease your spend. Like this author was still making like over 20 grand in profit. There was a 20 grand net profit January, and they decreased ad spend into February. And of course, you saw February decline when you do that. You decreased your ad spend for 2 months and turned your recovery into an ongoing decline. And then someone white knighted 5 extra ad spend and got you back to where you were. But it's not that's not the real answer. The real answer is figuring out why it declined, and figuring out the systems you need to have in place to not have that happen again. And that's what we're all going to think about this Christmas. And this is a time right now to think about, because right now we are in a time of year where ad cost is cheap. So you should be thinking about how are you going to market to people, make them build up brand awareness while ads are cheap right now, so that when you move into February and December, sorry, November and December, you're not just marketing 100% to a cold audience. These people already have seen you. They know who you are. You were running lead ads. You're running awareness ads. You were blanketing with low spend, high result rate traffic ads in this time, so that you can weather that higher ad spend time better. And then also, like I said, be thinking about the products you'll be running. Maybe think about doing the Kickstarter that you've been planning to do. Maybe this is the time to do it. Christmas Kickstarters are great, but the problem with Christmas Kickstarters is they need to be done late October, early November at the latest, depending on what your lead time is for getting all the products, because people want that stuff for Christmas. So, for example, I'm doing a Kickstarter, and I need to actually kick off my Kickstarter in September, likely, so I can have it done and start ordering things and getting them shipped to people so they arrive in time for Christmas. Because there's, at least in Canada, there's probably going to be another strike around Christmas. So that's always something to think about. Jill's finishing mid-November, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, sometimes that happens, and you can. There's sort of like a secondary thing where you can get into the whole like buying yourself pretty things that are going to come in the mail later is also its own dopamine hit. So it doesn't always have to deliver at Christmas, but I mean, that's the ideal thing, to have it deliver at Christmas. So those are my thoughts on this. This guy's graph, it making me angry. And not just because I spelled my name wrong, but I mean, like, hey, like, at least if you're going to trash talk me on your thing, backlink me and spell my name right. Give me something out of it. And it wasn't really trash talk. It was they said respected names and whatnot. But they really didn't. They were dishonest in the graph. They were dishonest in how the recovery worked, and they were dishonest about what the author could have done to fix this particular problem. And I'm just cheesed about that. So I'm maybe they won't be happy about me talking about this. I did kind of name and shame. It's novamediamarketing.net. But I figure if you're going to name me in your ad copy and say that, in a roundabout way, what I teach doesn't work, and then show bullshit like this saying what you're doing is working, is I feel like at that point you're sort of like it's fair game to come back at someone for doing that sort of thing. So yeah, so I'm curious if anybody else has some cool plans for what you plan on doing in Christmas. One of the things that I love doing is authors I work with that have Christmas books. It's always like, okay, once October hits, we start marketing, getting the Christmas books running again. Um, it works. It's a little bit better outside of the United States because the United States has its Thanksgiving so late that you really compress the Christmas book market time. But man, if you have Christmas books, after Halloween is when you want to start advertising in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK because everything shifts to Christmas at that point. Whereas the States, the shift it's got like this weird staged shift that you have to get, and you have to get over the Black Friday hump and all that stuff. So definitely do all of that. I don't feel bad. Yeah, he is piggybacking off of us for SEO and GEO. Um, you're right, Amy. They did do that to themselves with their stupid graph that was dishonest and lying and just dumb. Like you don't stack costs on top of gross profits in a graph like that. That's how you make a dishonest graph. The honest graph, which they didn't want to show, is the one where they managed to do as well as the author did on their own for 5x the ad spend. That's what they should have been showing. And then they're talking about how the lock screen ads are more effective. It's like your graph says that they're 4 times less effective, give or take the months you select to look at. But like the graph says that the AMS lock screens are less effective than Facebook ads. So I'm just kind of like, this is bullshit. This is complete bullshit. And it's apparent to anybody who takes a bit of time to look at it and kind of knows how the system works. So I thought I would help all you out with that. So yeah. So that's all I got right now, actually. I wish I had more. My rant had more steam yesterday when I first saw this. I was like examining the data and making graphs. But for those of you who came late, by the way, because I know a couple of bills showed up a little bit later, I did have something that I showed at the beginning. If you're keen on cool book mock-ups, I'll just show it one last time and then we'll wrap. But if anybody has cool things they're doing for Christmas they want to talk about, go for it. I'd be happy to hear that too. So this is bookmockups.authortools.net. Jill and I are going to be taking a lot more of the tools that we have and making them available for people to use. These are currently based off the Cover Vault Photoshop templates that used to exist back in the day until the guy running it sort of shut it all down. I've tried to reach out to him multiple times, be like, hey, can I like buy these, license these? So what I ended up doing was recreating all of these as not Photoshop and making them available for free for people to use going forward without having to use Photoshop. And it doesn't use AI. It does everything in your browser and allows you to make really cool mock-ups. And the best thing about these mock-ups is that they're not flat. A lot of the mock-ups that you'll see on different sites, Canva, Placeit, they're really flat. They don't have like light. They don't have the right good shadow. They don't have a 3D feel to them. And this particular system does. And the cool thing that you do is as you upload books, it will determine like if it's you upload your full wrap PDF, the same thing you use for a print edition, it figures out your spine, you can adjust it. And then when you just drag and drop the book into different places, it will then like know, oh, this is a cover, and it's just going to knows how to put it in. And if I go and change these to none, boop, boop, and then I go and grab this wrap here, since I've laid out the spine, it knows that, oh, I'm supposed to be putting the spine on the spine. Same thing if it's the back. If I go to a book template where I've got front and back and everything, because it does all in your browser, it takes just a couple of seconds to load it up. And some people have already made some template requests. I can just go and just drop this thing in here. I could have different books in here. I could have same books in here. And we're going to be adding things like sprayed edges and stuff like that too. And then let me get this last one in here to show it doing the back. Boom, there it is. So because it knows it's the back and it knows it's supposed to put the back there. If it ever screws up, you could also be like, nope, I'm sorry, this should actually be whatever. It should be the spine, it should be the front. So you can make those little adjustments if it's wrong. But it's in all of my testing, it's correct every time. I just have that as like a pull cord in case of whatever. So bookmockups.authortools.net, completely free, runs in your browser, no AI involved, fast, nothing leaves your browser. When you download your PNG, we ask for your email address one time, and then you're good to go. So I'm pretty stoked about it. The thing I like the most is it takes those amazing cover vault 3D templates and makes them available again after they disappeared. And also because I'm like not super keen on Photoshop anymore, I'm just tired of paying eternal subscriptions for everything where the thing I get doesn't change. Um, like I feel like we have, and I should be, be completely honest with you, we have our Writing Wives school, where you can learn about all of everything we know, all of our marketing strategies, everything we have going on, everything we're studying. All of that is in school, but we're always updating it, right? You're always getting new learnings, you're getting new classes, we're doing calls, you get new things all the time, you get updated information all the time. Photoshop today is, not significantly different than Photoshop a decade ago. You're not really getting a new thing, and that's what I don't like having to pay for a slightly shinier version of the same thing for every month forever, right? I want to be able to have things. And so this is what I want to offer everybody is to have a thing. Along those lines, we are starting our GEO, generative engine optimization, which honestly I kind of feel like needs to change to AEO in a way, answer engine optimization. And so here's the thing. Um, 49% of American adults now use chat. 68% of Google searches, and this wild varies quite a bit depending on what you search for, but it ends without a click because Google now provides enough information on the search results screen that you don't need to click on anything to get the answer. So how do we make sure that Google has the right answer? And how do we make sure that we are in the answer? That's what GEO stands for, or AEO, answer engine optimization. We are moving from the age of search to the age of answers. And we need to make sure that our sites and our online presence is well structured so that we now come up in those search results. And a lot of people paint this as a bad thing, as the death of the open web. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that the whole reason why everybody started building websites was to have a canonical source of truth about their business or about a topic. That still exists. How that information gets delivered to the consumers of that information has changed, and it's less profitable for the people running the websites if their business is clicks. If your business is actually selling a product, a thing, well, that commerce still has to take place somewhere, but it doesn't take place unless you're in the answer that the AI or the search engine provides. And that's the big change. We're moving away from optimizing for search engines, optimizing for answer engines and generative engines as well. So we're teaching that. Our first class is, I don't know, actually, I forgot to check. Jill, when's the first class? Jill scheduled everything the other day. It's gonna be 4 classes long. I'm gonna teach you why this is important. I'm gonna teach you how to update your website to handle GEO. I'm also gonna give you the opportunity to have a static website that you can host for free that does all of this. Doesn't cost you anything to host it, completely free, other than the cost of the domain name that you might use. And you can update it by talking to AI, because to be honest, one of the best things uses of AI is removing drudgery, and updating a website is drudgery. But you can just say to the AI, hey, I'm this author. Here's the template system for this website. Find all my books on the internet and build me a website. 30 minutes later, you have a website. You get a new book. You say to the AI, hey, add this new book to my website. The AI adds the book to your website. In many regards, it's actually more cost effective than you doing on your own, because it takes less time of a computer, less of a computer's time and electricity to do it. It's actually highly efficient from that perspective as well. So that's the next thing we'll be teaching, is how to do a GEO website. And you get like this cool, you can, at the end of the day, you can update your existing website, Shopify, Square, Wix, WordPress, to handle all this, to look correct to the AIs and the answer engine systems, and also be an awesome website for humans and be free, if you want to use ours, or you can update your own and have it do all this too. I'm going to do my best to cover all the bases. So yeah, I'm super stoked about that. And I've been doing some testing, and there's a marked improvement in the results I'm getting when I search for my stuff now. I'm getting much more accurate, in-depth results, and I can see that ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini to a slightly lesser extent, and Perplexity, which is a search engine that AIs use, are all actually citing my website more. They're pulling more truth from my website, versus the majority of the information about me being from other people, and it's all up to date, which is one of the biggest things that we want as well. So that's going to be happening. And as Jill said, wait, August 26th and 27th, and then September 1st and 2nd, because Labor Day is the 7th. So we don't have to worry about that bumping into Labor Day. So that's like, isn't it, is it 26th next week? Yeah, next Wednesday. So we're doing this next Wednesday. We're getting into this. I'm having a blast putting together the class for it. It's going to be really interactive. It's going to have really good information, a lot of take-home things for people to do to really help us understand our online presence, how to get cited, all sorts of cool things. So that's going down as well. And with that, I am going to bid you farewell. I was gonna like show you a little bit of what I'm building, but I think we're so close to the 26th. I'm gonna make you guys wait for the class. I'm not gonna like spoil it by revealing too much too soon, but it's pretty cool. The results are amazing. The results when you don't do this correctly are also eye-opening. Um, and we're going to be honest. We're going to show one of our pen names that is working and one of our pen names that isn't working, and like highlight some of the difference that you get from optimization versus non-optimization. Um, and yeah, Amy, reach out to Jill, get that squared away because you definitely want to be there. So yeah, I hope you guys have a fabulous day, a great upcoming weekend, and I'll see you all next week because now that summer is basically over, lunch with Mal shall carry forth. Jill is the pen name where things aren't working. There's a lot of good reasons. Jill has too many pen names, and that's part of the problem. So that's all fixable, and so that's what we're going to be talking about: is how to fix it all. All right, see you guys. Have yourselves a fabulous day.